Hello, so today's video is going to be a fragrance tray. This is my first ever fragrance tray video. You may have seen my 10 reasons to make a fragrance tray video, which I'll leave a link down below in case you haven't seen it. But basically in that video I was discussing the reasons why you would want to make a fragrance tray. And I decided to just have a go. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire Smith. I make videos all about perfume, perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology, and I also just do some straight perfume reviews and also fun perfume tags. So if that kind of thing interests you and you haven't already done so, then please do consider subscribing and please also press the like button if you do enjoy this kind of content. So fragrance trays, it's something that I've always thought about, but I never thought was for me because I thought they would be too restrictive. But I'm just going to have a go. I'm just going to see how I get on with this month's tray and see whether this kind of thing is for me. My worry here is that I will just not use what's on the tray, but I'm going to report back and say how many times I use each of the fragrances. And hopefully I've picked wise enough because I've really tried to pick fragrances that are going to be suitable for summer, fragrances that I'm probably going to want to reach for during summer. So hopefully I'll be okay, but as we all know, the weather in the summer in the UK is very unpredictable. So who knows? So let's get on with the first one. So the first fragrance I'm going to choose, I feel pretty safe with because this is something that I've been wearing this week already. So I know this is something that I'm going to reach for. So this one is Alluring Fig by Theodoros Catinis. So this fragrance I think I would rate as my most photorealistic fig fragrance. It really makes me think of a time when I was on holiday in Sardinia and I was eating breakfast outside, and this kind of area where we were eating breakfast was surrounded by fig plants, and that was really all I could smell. And this fragrance just takes me instantly back there. And I think that's why I like wearing this one this time of year, because it really makes me feel like I'm on holiday. So this fragrance, while it is that kind of green, sappy fig smell, it also does have some vanilla. And I think that just stops it from being unapproachable, bitter, too green. It just sort of rounds it out a little bit and makes it a very wearable fragrance. I think I just really love this one because the fig is so realistic in this fragrance, and I just think this one just takes me straight to summer. So this is my first choice, Alluring Fig. So the next fragrance is one from L'Occitane, and this one's called Verveine, and I've decanted some of this little dabber bottle into a spray bottle because it's just not something I want to use, a dabber bottle. I just don't really get on with them. So I feel like I will use this fragrance more now it's in a spray bottle. So Verveine is just a really bright, happy, uplifting fragrance, but it's sadly short-lived, and it's basically lemon verbena. There's not much more to say other than the fact that it just smells like lemon verbena. If you've not tried lemon verbena, I'd say it's kind of a greener smelling, soft lemon fragrance. It's got aromatic touches to it. It makes me think of the Mediterranean. It's a little bit even slightly woody maybe in the dry down, but really it's quite a light, short-lived fragrance. And I really treat this one as just a pick-me-up. It's something to just, spritz on and enjoy, and then maybe like an hour or so later it's pretty much gone. This fragrance is really something that I got obsessed with when I was buying a present for someone, and I was in the L'Occitane shop and they were spraying the paper that they wrap the presents in with this fragrance, and I had to get a little mini of it. I really feel very hesitant to buy a full bottle of this fragrance because it is quite short-lived, but I do just really find it very addictive. It's just something that I want to spray on myself all of the time because it just feels so bright and happy. So that's why I'm choosing that one, L'Occitane's Verveine. So the next fragrance was really one of my absolute favourites, my most worn fragrances of last year, something I was totally obsessed with, and this year I've hardly worn it. So I thought, do you know what, I'm going to put it on my tray and I'm going to feel the love for it again. And this fragrance is Jasmin Des by Christian Dior. So this fragrance, I think I would best describe it as something that smells like a honeyed jasmine fragrance. So it smells to me like a honeysuckle kind of fragrance, that kind of light sweetness that you get with honeysuckle with jasmine. And the jasmine is very soft and petally, and it's not really, an indolic jasmine. It's just kind of a fruity jasmine almost. It's kind of got an apricotiness as well to it. I think really the dry down is quite musky, but again with that jasmine just sticking around, and it's just a very sort of sweet floral overall really. I think this fragrance just makes me think of prettiness really. It always makes me think of garden parties as well. I think in the summer, if I was invited somewhere posh basically, I would always choose this fragrance. I'm going to a graduation actually shortly. I'm going to sit on the stage and wear my gown and my capes and be Dr. Claire. So I might wear this one for graduation. So that's Jasmin Des by Christian Dior. So the next fragrance is one that I bought in autumn last year, and I tried it once or twice and I pegged it as a summer fragrance and it wasn't summer, so I put it away and thought to myself, I'll try it when it's nice and sunny and really fully enjoy it. So this one is Tonic by Miller Harris. And the reason this one's on my tray this month is because I just don't know this fragrance. I haven't worn it enough to be able to know my thoughts on it. And I thought this is the time of year when I should be wearing this one. So this one is a lemony feeling tea fragrance. And in the opening as well, there's kind of a slight smokiness, maybe even just something slightly leathery about this. And then as this dries down, it goes through really a complete transformation. It turns into a fruity floral fragrance really, and it also becomes quite musky actually in the dry down, but still with a bit of a citrus feeling about it. I just think I need to wear this one more, and I think this time of the year is the time for this one. So we're going to find out what I think about this one. So that's Tonic by Miller Harris. The next fragrance is again a super safe one. I know this one really well. It's truly one of the favourites in my collection, and this one is Miller Harris Found at Dusk. So this fragrance always takes me back to childhood. It takes me back to playing hide and seek with my next door neighbour, running around my garden when I was little. And it always makes me think of just playing in the garden. So we had blackcurrant bushes outside a greenhouse. In the greenhouse we had some tomato plants, and then we also had some mint plants around that area as well. And this fragrance has all of those elements, and it always makes me think of a really hot summer's day when, in the UK you usually get a thunderstorm straight after a really hot summer's day. And that is that feeling of the thunderstorm is coming. It's the feeling of the humid air and perhaps being in that garden under a cool tree, being in the shade and feeling that thundery air is there and that rainstorm's coming. I mean, I guess this is called Found at Dusk, so that's what this fragrance is trying to emulate, isn't it? It's that feeling of the dampness coming down at dusk time. But I just really, really love the opening of this fragrance. I love that kind of fruity blackcurrant feel, and I just really want to wear this one more. I think this fragrance is probably level pegging with Violet Ida for my favourite from Miller Harris fragrances, but this one definitely has more of that kind of childhood nostalgia, and I think that's why this one is just edging out Violet Ida for me. So that's Miller Harris's Found at Dusk. So the next fragrance is one that's brand new to my collection, and it's one I won in an Instagram giveaway. So this one's called Gatia, and it's by Nancy Mayland or Myland. I really don't know how to pronounce her brand name. So Nancy is a indie perfumer who's based in Brighton, and she was running this Instagram competition where you had to submit your pictures of yourself as a Bridgerton character. So I did a few of me, and I will put them up in this video as well so you can all have a look. So I did a few as ladies, and I did one as a gentleman as well, just for a bit of fun, and I happened to win this competition. And she chose to give me this fragrance. So she said that this really did represent how Bridgerton is to her. And I didn't really understand what she meant at the time, but actually looking back, I see it now, because this fragrance really, to me, seems to straddle the world between the more vintage and the more modern styles of perfumery. It sort of does have a little bit more of a vintage feel to it, but it still is done in a very modern way. So this fragrance, I think, is really quite complicated for me. I first tried this one in a sample back in 2021, and I remember being completely flummoxed by how this smelt. And that's why I've put this one on the tray, really, just so that I can get to know it a bit better, but I'll attempt to describe it for you. So this is a white floral, really, initially, and it also has a bit of a herbalness about it. So the herbalness comes off to me as something like fennel, but also there is a touch of cardamom here. And then as this dries down, it becomes more resinous, it becomes warm, it becomes ambery, but it also becomes quite sweet, but also a little bit salty. It's really very strange, this fragrance. It also has a little bit of a floralness that's apart from the white florals, and also something that's fruity. I think this is just a really interesting fragrance, and actually smelling it from the cap, smelling it, without spraying it, it really makes me think of flowers growing out of straw bales. It makes me think of the countryside. It makes me think of green fields. It just has this kind of green freshness about it without actually being that green. It's such an interesting fragrance and it's really strong. It's something you could really knock out a room with. I think if you ever sprayed this, it would just be overwhelming. I think this is one definitely to go lightly with. And it's one that I'll probably only wear on cooler days this summer. I'll probably only wear in summer evenings. I think if you're going out, this would be a perfect choice. I did send a sample of this to Emily, and I remember she said to me this one made her think of Tom Ford's Velvet Orchid. And I do see what she means. It's the dry down of this fragrance that does smell a little bit like Velvet Orchid. It's got that resinous feel, it's got that sweetness, it's got that warmth, and it's got the florals as well. I just think this one is just really stunning. I can't wait to get to know it better. So that's Eglantier by Nancy Mayland. So the next fragrance is actually one I've had for a few years. I think I bought this one in late 2020 maybe, I can't really remember. And it really represents to me a real time of flux in the world of perfumery. And it makes me a little bit sad actually, this fragrance, just thinking about how this brand has really changed for me for the worse. And this fragrance is Alien Mirage. So this fragrance is the EDT version. I don't think they actually made an EDP, but it really performs very much like an EDP on me. It's something that's really all day kind of fragrance. So this is, again, very along the lines of the Alien DNA, but without the jasmine. So here it's got other florals. It's got aquatic kind of florals in this fragrance. And it still has that cashmere in, it still has that ambery base, but it also has a little bit of ambroxan. And I think, you know, sometimes ambroxan really puts me off a fragrance, but actually I don't mind it in this fragrance. I just think it adds to that kind of aquatic feel. And it's not something that's overbearing for me. I think this fragrance is just something I want to wear when it's kind of middling warm. I don't want it super hot when I'm wearing this one, but I want it sort of warmish, because I think that's really when it sings best, really. Considering I've had this fragrance for 3-4 years, I've not used that much. I've used maybe a fifth of this bottle, but I just think this one's probably a little bit, you know, it's older now. I probably should be working my way through this bottle, but this is so hard to find now. I think this has been discontinued many years. L'Oreal really discontinued all of the old Clarins releases. And I think this one just is a real shame, isn't it? It's just a representation of everything that was lost when L'Oreal took over Mugler. And yeah, I'm not going to moan, but yeah, I've made an entire video about the history of the Mugler house and the fragrances that were released under Clarins and under L'Oreal, and you can see my thoughts there. But basically, this one I just feel like I need to use more and need to enjoy it while it's still fresh and still good. So that's why this one's on the tray. I really like that this fragrance has that mineralic, fresh, aquatic feel, but without cologne. I think cologne can really ruin fragrances for me, and this is really what I want from an aquatic fragrance. So that's Alien Mirage. So the next fragrance is one that I was gifted for my birthday by Scented Snowdrops here on YouTube, John. And this one is a dupe, it's a clone of Creed's Virgin Island Water, and it's by Pocket Scents, called Il Vierge. And I think this fragrance is just something that's taken me by complete surprise. I've been wearing it a little bit in the last couple of months, and I just want to wear it more. I just want to enjoy it while it's still quite warm outside, and I think that's really the best time for this fragrance. I think this, if you haven't tried Creed's Virgin Island Water, this I think is just the sort of a very similar fragrance, but it just lasts a lot longer. And I actually think I prefer it to Virgin Island Water. I don't think I could ever really see myself buying Virgin Island Water. However nice that fragrance is, it just doesn't last very long, and it's just quite a quiet one. Whereas this fragrance is a little bit more oomphy, and it does just last a bit longer. I just really like this because it has all of those elements. It has that lime, it has the coconut. The coconut is both fresh but also creamy. It has the rum. It just feels like, you know, a tropical island getaway, perfect for the summer, something quite zingy, but also quite fresh, but also quite creamy, but also quite musky. And I just really like those kind of playoffs in this fragrance. And I just think that everybody needs a tropical one, don't they, for the summertime. So that's Il Vierge by Pocket Scents. So the next fragrance I'm adding to my tray is one that I just really don't think is me. I wear it and I just think that's not something that I would normally choose, but I think that's good sometimes, isn't it, with fragrance, to just be a little bit outside your comfort zone. So this one is Le Jardin de Montsouris by Hermès, and this is a green, sappy floral fragrance, but with some fruitiness. It's got some kind of lemoniness to it, And it's also got a mintiness as well. So it's a herbal smelling, sappy green floral fragrance. The jasmine here is really soft and very indistinct and something that just melds in with the other notes. Really, it's the green sappiness that comes overall. And it actually makes me think of sort of Chinese gardens. It makes me think of water mint, actually. I think as well it makes me think of water chestnuts. I guess it's just the watery feel, isn't it, overall? It doesn't smell of water chestnuts, really. It's just the wateriness. I think this fragrance is something that I only really want to wear in spring and summer. So it really should be on my tray right now because I've only worn it once so far this year. So I just want to get to know it a bit more. I want to wear it a bit more, suss out exactly what time of year I really want to be wearing this one, what kind of weather conditions suit it. Maybe wear it on a slightly cooler day, slightly hotter day, just suss it out a bit more. So that's why that one's on the tray. So that's Le Jardin de Montcieli by Hermès. So the final fragrance in the selection for August is going to be really one that, again, that I only really wear when it's really warm. And I wore this one once last week and I really enjoyed it. I wore it on a day when it was 28 degrees and it suited it so well. So this one's Flora Botanica by Balenciaga. This fragrance can really stand up to really high temperatures and it just does not fade. It's such a good fragrance for longevity, for projection. And I know that it's very controversial. Some people absolutely hate this fragrance. It's long discontinued. I see it going for, £200 on eBay, which I think is ridiculous. But I do see why this one was loved. It is very different. It's a very individual fragrance that I haven't smelled anything like at all. And I see why people love this one. So this one, if you haven't smelt it, it's green, it's herbal smelling, there's mint here. And there's also sort of a sweet rose water, but it's not so sweet. It's still quite tempered by the greenness. There's also a little bit of a spiciness here, and I think that's probably the carnation. But really the dry down is all about the aldehydes. The aldehydes make this fragrance quite soapy. It has this feeling of being a kind of liquid detergent kind of fragrance in the dry down. It makes you think you're surrounded by bubbles almost. And that sounds awful, but actually it just really works with the rose and it really works with the mint and the greenness. I just think this one's really striking and it's just perfect for hot weather. So I'm hoping I'm going to reach for this one a bit more in August. I think it tends to get buried at the back of my collection and it just gets forgotten about a little bit, which is why I've not worn so much of this fragrance in the few years that I've had it. But really that's why I want to do these trays so that I can go back to these fragrances and, suss out my collection a bit more, talk about them a bit more, all these fragrances that I have that I hardly ever mention, because that's the problem, isn't it, in fragrance YouTube. You're always looking for the new things and you're always looking to talk about newness to be current, but, things get discontinued. So how can people be current without being completely wasteful or just constantly decluttering? I'm just trying to be slightly different on YouTube. I'm trying to go back to these older fragrances in my collection and trying to, be more like a normal person rather than someone who's constantly buying and constantly getting new fragrances. I think that can be quite damaging actually with YouTube, and I'm just trying to, strike out something different. So that's Flora Botanica by Balenciaga. So that's the final fragrance on this fragrance tray for August. I hope you've enjoyed my first fragrance tray video. I'm going to come back in a month's time and I'm going to tell you how I've got on, how many times I've worn each of these fragrances, whether I have different thoughts about them, whether I've got to know them any better, and I might choose some more fragrances for September if this goes well. So if you have enjoyed this video and you haven't done already, then please do press the like button and please also consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!